Good morning and good coffee to you. Um, so, you may notice that the scenery is a little bit different than it normally is for the show. Um, I have the house to myself today, or this morning. Carrie and the kids are out at the lake, uh, escaping the heat, and I had some work that I needed to continue doing. So, I decided to stay here, finish up the work, and brave the heat, which resulted in me getting the morning to do this on the couch with my coffee, sitting by the guitars. It's pretty good. So while we're waiting for people to get logged in for this, I feel like, I don't know, I feel kind of lame calling it an episode, but for this particular video, what we're going to talk about is what the world needs now is off-grid life. I made a statement in the last video that said that you name a social ill and I can solve it with off-grid living. So this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, was some of the things that are, going on in the world that could actually be solved by living off-grid. And then I want to go over 3 common sense, easy tips that if you follow, it'll virtually guarantee that you're successful at this whole transformation from being on to off-grid, or being dependent to self-sustaining, any of those sorts of things. And really, you could even apply these tips to any other area of your life, and they'd more than likely work out for you. But I wanted to just kind of start this morning. Also, I had the house to myself last night, so I stayed up watching movies and stuff, so I'm also incredibly tired. So some cool stuff happened this week. It was the 4th of July. My younger brother, Cody, who's a member of this group now, came up with his family and visited us here at the ranch. And it was a great trip. It was incredible to have him come up here. He lives in the Bay Area, so, it's like super populated. It's incredibly, I don't know. There's lots of ways to describe the Bay Area. It's just not a nice place to raise your kids. But he's been wanting to kind of make the same transformation that I've made and that our family has made. So he came up to just kind of experience the lifestyle and see how, how life is out here. And it was funny because I think I prepared him for, like post-apocalyptic, we're going to go out and have to hunt for our food. And, like that was the things that I was talking about. Hey, Gerald. Hey, Ann. Good morning to you. Good coffee. Hope you guys are enjoying your brew. So anyway, my brother came out with his whole family, and they had a great trip, a great time, and they found a great property. It's on the other side of the county from us. It's affordable, and he's gonna do it. He's gonna go for it. I know, Ann, you don't like coffee. There's a few other ones in there. Grab yourself some tea or kombucha or whatever it is that you wake up with. Beet juice. Do you drink beet juice? Attaboy, Gerald. Attaboy. There it is. See, you got another one there, Amy. Anyway, he is now working on securing the property and getting everything going, and this whole experience with him and going and looking at the property has just been pretty amazing, because it's allowed me to take some of the things that I've talked about in these videos and put them into practice with someone who I'm very close with, someone who knows me very well, being my brother. So I'm really excited that he's going to go. He's going to take the plunge, as it were, and start making this happen. Awesome, sweet tea. Yeah, whatever floats your boat. I like I like sweet tea. I like all of those things actually that were mentioned. So okay, so I'm gonna get into it now, and I want to just say that this is gonna be kind of a talk that we're gonna need lots of reactions to, lots of things, back and forth, lots of comments. I might ask you to Google something and post something on the comments. I really need a lot of interaction to make this particular talk work, because I want to see, yeah, exactly. So like when you agree with something, or if I ask a question, use the reactions to answer, and then I might ask you also to, grab, write down a list of things in the comments that you think are problems. So awesome. Thanks, man. So again, everybody kind of just hum it with me. What the world needs now is off-grid life. And I just kind of want to go over some of the problems that I see in the world. You got crime, overpopulation. Some of these are more significant than others. Traffic, broken families. You got drugs, stress with your job, and stress with money, and stress with relationships, and you got education and what kids are being taught these days, which is super interesting. Yeah, you got polarization, you got debt, you have war, you have all of these different things that are just like the blights of community. You guys, can you think of anything else? Is there anything else that you guys can think of that you see is an actual problem in our world? How about media, for example? I don't care what side of the media you guys pay attention to, but I will say there are two mechanisms that the media uses to communicate to you. One is fear, the other is guilt. One side responds to fear, the other side responds to guilt. I don't know if you know anything about this subject, but those are the two things that you use to really to drive someone into. If you play on someone's fears, you can convince them of most anything. Oh, right on. There you go. Awesome. Okay. And the thing about it is if you use either fear or guilt to get your point across, you're not trying to have a conversation with someone. You're trying to use the buttons that they have installed in their mind from their whole life to essentially control them, to make a person pliable so that they can then be indoctrinated. So I'm going to try my best not to do that, because I don't think that those are good ways to motivate people to change anything. I think they're good ways to isolate people, to polarize people even further. And I'm not that guy. I'd much rather have a conversation with both sides than only engage with one, because I'm going to go into agreement with that one side. They're going to go into agreement with me, and we're never going to make any kind of progress at all. So riffraff, polluted water, contaminated food, noise, light pollution, stress, anxiety, all of those things are absolutely true things. Well, I got some interesting statistics this morning that I was looking up. I'm going to just take the U.S., because that's where I am, that's where I have the most reality. What am I drinking? Coffee. Always. Saturday mornings. It's always coffee. But you may be wondering, why does he drink coffee from a redneck wine glass? Well, because I had broken my sliced pear jar and decided it was time to upgrade. My friend gave me this, so I'm going to talk about the U.S. That's where I'm at. This is what I have reality on, but I'm sure you guys might be able to see some parallels no matter where you are. Let's take, for example, the U.S. population is right now at 321.4 million people. The U.S. in square miles is 3.797 million square miles. That's a lot of space, okay? If you divide that by the U.S. population, you get 7.68 acres per person, okay? Mine's soon to be a family of 7, so that takes into account all of them, right? And myself, you know. So actually, everybody, just kind of look out the window real quick, and I want your comments on what you see. Do you see people? Are there people like right there? Is there a neighbor right there? I know a lot of people here live rurally, you know, and have some space, have some acres. But I think there are a lot of people also who are looking at this as a solution to escape whatever the situation is that they find themselves in. I know Gerald's got no people. You see pollution. A neighborhood. Okay. And that's, you know, some neighborhoods are really nice. You know, and safe and everything else. Fields of corn and road. Attaboy, Joe. So that's the thing, is if you look at the percentage of people in the United States who actually live in cities, large populated areas, you're looking at 81% of that 321.4 million people. Okay? 81%. And that even lumps in there all of the small cities. You know, if you take, let's say a city like New York City, okay? This is the most densely populated city in the United States. You have 27,000 people per square mile. That's 640 acres, if you've ever seen that. Escaping the, oh yeah, you're tomorrow's the day, right, Paul? You're leaving tomorrow or the next day? Something like that. I frickin' wish you luck, man. I think you're gonna just have such an amazing time with that adventure, getting away from all the sheeple. Yep, you very well may be right. The world might just kind of switch on us. 27,000 people per square mile in New York City. Do you know what the crime rate is there? Do you know what the drug rate is? Or how traffic is? I mean, it sounds like overpopulation to me. Do you know how many broken families there are? What kind of stresses there are? How the media, you know, delivers information to you in that area? Do you know how polarized it is? Do you know what the education system looks like there? Remember all of those problems that I was talking about at the beginning? Just do a quick Google search. Look at what the crime rate is, you know. Let's take Los Angeles, for example. It's very similar there. Dallas, Seattle, Portland, any of these big cities. You know what the real problem is? Is that the rest of the country looks to these particular places as a model, as how it should be. You know? All education in this country is pretty sad, actually. If you look at the things that people or kids are being taught, it's just like, it makes me irritated, you know, and I can kind of, you know, jump around and shout and everything because my wife and kids aren't here. So I may be doing that because this is kind of one of those subjects that I just get really passionate about. So I have a question to posit for you, okay? What if there were 7.68 acres between each and every one of us? What if when we wanted to interact with people, we could, and when we didn't want to interact with people, we didn't have to? What if there was enough space for us to not have to worry about what the neighbor is doing, or worry about how much noise they're making, or, you know, any of those sorts of things? What do you think would happen if we were to just spread out a little bit? I don't know about you, but I used to live in the city, okay? I lived in a very densely populated area right in Los Angeles, or just right outside of Los Angeles. When we moved out here, we were looking at a website called citydata.com. And it gives you a bunch of stats. And if you know me, you know I'm a stat junkie. I like to see numbers, and I like to see how they compare to other things, and I look for coincidences based in those two sets of numbers. The city that I lived in had a certain population density, and it was something ridiculous, like 1 person per every 248 square feet. What? Does that even make sense? How do you live in a house that has, that particular house I think was like 1,000 square feet, and then I started looking at it, and I look out the window, and there's 4 more stacked on top of the back one and 2 on either sides that had a second story. What? Whoever decided that this was a good idea to stack that many people who, especially, Americans are Americans. We're independent people, and we don't take no guff, tend to. And that's just something that's ingrained into our culture. Who decided that it was a good idea to stack that many independent people on top of each other and tell them that this is how you have to live because otherwise you can't afford land? Well, let me tell you, you can find land for next to nothing. It might not be desirable, at the beginning, but you can find land that you can make desirable, okay? You can take the energy that you spend going to work every day and the 3 hours that you spend in traffic every day, and you can apply that to something that will continue off into the future, and that you can turn your property into something that takes care of you. You can become independent. You can make your own energy. Who originally came up with the idea that cities were the best way to go? Why? Because you can deliver more medicine? Well, I don't know. If you ever lived in the city, it takes 3 months to get an appointment with your frickin' doctor. Right? Why? Because it's easier to get around when a shopping center is down the block? I suppose that would be convenient to just be able to walk down the block or jump in my car and get down there. But if it takes you 20 frickin' minutes to get down there because of the traffic, it takes me 26 minutes to get to the closest store. So I'd rather drive through the mountains for that 26 minutes instead of sitting in traffic breathing all of the smog and everything else. Because it's easier to distribute energy. That's just a load of baloney. That was a deal somebody made. That was a waterfront property in Arizona that you were sold. And I'm going to go back and look at all of these comments. The way the sun's coming in the room right now, I can't actually read them without leaning real close to it, and I'm sure my nose hair will, run a few of you off if I get too close. But I just look at this world now, and I was the one that didn't want to move out here, just so you know. My wife, this was my wife's idea. She wanted to get us out here. And I was a technology, junkie. I had my entire front room in our place set up to produce videos and do internet work, and I had servers and all this other stuff. And I'm like, there's no possible way that I could do this out there. Come to find out, everything that I wanted when I was there, the freedom to do and the freedom from things and the freedom to be, I actually found out here. I didn't have it back then, even though I thought I did. That was an apparency, something I was sold. You ever bought something and then afterwards you're like, man, that salesman, he was real slick. He actually is the reason why I bought that. He made these points that I didn't have to really think too much about, because he just made me agree over and over and over again. Well, that's what has happened with the whole living in the city thing. Everybody now is in one place, and they all have to justify their existence by agreeing that this is the best way to live. And that's just not the case. You need to spread out a little bit. You need to have space between you and your neighbor. Because people, especially people who are interested in living off-grid, are not necessarily the easiest people to get along with. Why? Because they see things, or they tend to see things for what they are, right? They tend to see things for the messed up ridiculousness that is being sold to people. And I just have to say, it's time. It's time for us to look at all of these problems: war, crime, overpopulation, traffic, broken families, drugs, money, stress, jobs, relationships, education, fear, guilt, media, polarization, debt, and anything else that you can think of as a problem, and start looking for actual real life solutions. Step 1, spread out a little bit. Okay? Don't be stacked on top of your neighbor. Don't let your neighbors be stacked on top of you. Reason being, it gives you the space to actually make decisions as to what is best for you and your family. It allows you to actually think. This hat, I know it's coming up backwards right now, but somebody pointed out to me is that this is the necessary element. You need to think. You need to be able to say, this is something I don't agree with, so I'm going to do something about it. Problem is, if you're like 80% of the rest of the population of this country, you're completely squeezed together with a bunch of people who don't think that. Not because they've thought it out, but because they've been indoctrinated to think that way. Okay. So, what, in your opinion, is the biggest problem that our world, or that our culture, or that anything else faces right now? Noisy neighbor. Absolutely. That is actually the thing that let's see, Terrence Skies, it says too many noisy people and annoying neighbors. So check it out. I actually, right before I came here, I almost did a ridiculously stupid thing because I had snapped. I had neighbors that just at 2 o'clock in the morning would slam their security door, and I'm talking right next to, we lived in a townhome. Their front door was here. My bedroom window was here. And they'd slam their security door and start singing at the top of their lungs at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just ridiculous, Finally, I was just pissed, I was absolutely irate. I went over there, and it became a whole thing that resulted in 16 cops showing up, and luckily I had this silver tongue and a video camera strapped around my neck, and I was able to get on video the police officer saying, when I said, this is a total waste of your time, he said, don't worry, we've got nothing better to do, and we get paid by the hour, and having that on video and streaming to my server inside the house, I think is probably what saved me from having that problem. Elizabeth, I think you're totally right, but here's one thing that you have to know is that you can actually have all of those modern technologies and modern things that that you need out here too. There's none of those things that people want can they not have here. It's just it's really interesting to me. Let's see. Constant bombardment from outside sources, TV, media, phones, electronics, and such. There's no quiet anymore. Heidi, you're totally right. There isn't. You can't even drive down the street without being told that, by billboards and digital projectors and blah, 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 how you should look and how you should think about something and who you should vote for and why. And, you don't have room to breathe and you don't have room to think. And if you could just spread out the only reason why those forms of media even exist is because there's so many people in one place that they can communicate to. Otherwise, it'd be ineffective and no one would spend money on it, and therefore it would go away. So, yeah, poisoning our food and water sources, absolutely. And if you can grow food, then you know at least what goes into it. If you have your own source of water that you get tested on an annual basis, then you know what's in it. Don't say anymore, they may hear you. Yeah, well, here's the thing is I don't think there's going to be much of a world left if we don't do something about it. Honestly, I don't think there's going to be a place. We're all going to end up having to, 99% of us are going to have to pay the price for what 1% of us decided. And I'm not talking about the 1% or any of that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's a small group of people who are in power and make decisions for the rest of us. And none of them seem to do what they say they're going to do. So, I think what we need is a terminated solution. We need something that we can do that will allow us to spread out, to stop being right on top of each other, to stop being a large, advertising saying, shooting fish in a barrel, right? We need to get rid of the barrel. Let the fish spread out into the water, We need to actually do something that's effective. None of the policies that we ever come up with as a government or a people run by a government ever work out. They never do, And because long-term history is so difficult to predict, all we can do is look in reverse at history, and we should be able to look at that and go, none of the government intervention or regulation or laws of this or that or the other thing has ever actually handled a problem. It may have made it illegal to express yourself about that problem, but it's never actually solved anything. We just need to spread out. So I don't want to beat a dead horse more than you have to. But I think people are kind of getting to a point where there's so much agitation, so much crap going on in all the places that you look. It doesn't matter where you go. You look around and you see this craziness, this insanity that's happening, and people are making it okay to be that way. I don't know. I mean, am I wrong? Is this, use your reaction buttons to tell me, whether I'm right or wrong, or actually just tell me if I'm wrong. Use the anger if I'm wrong, the like if you think I'm right. It seems to be the source of all of the problems that people are fighting so hard to handle. They're just like, I'm going to start a foundation and a Facebook page, great, okay, do that, but do something effective, Do something that actually results in difference. Do you know when this country was a country that was actually an amazing place, or the world in general, is when people had small farms and they were able to produce all the food that they could, or at least produce enough of one thing to be able to trade with other people to have everything that they needed. It wasn't, because of the iPhone, it wasn't because of the internet or anything else like that. We had space. That was the common denominator to, when things were a little better. There's been cities for a long, long time, but have they ever worked? How about city-states in Rome? Did that work? Greece? How about the Chinese cities way back in the day, 3,000-4,000 years ago? Didn't work then either. When it did work was when we had some space, when we could think and breathe, and we could go, that bit of information didn't make sense. So, that being said, I'm just going to assume, based on all those reactions, that we have some agreement going here. We can agree that these are all problems. We can agree that the solutions that we've come up with, our best solutions that we've come up with, have landed us where we are right now as a planet. And we can probably agree that that's not where we want to be. So let's try something different, because although most times throwing the baby out with the bathwater is a bad thing, I think this is a baby that needs to go outside, if you know what I mean. So I've got these 3 bits of information. These 3, I don't know, it may be self-serving, and it may be totally the least humble thing to say in the world. But these, if you can do these 3 things with almost anything that you want to do, it will give you, it'll put you in a position that will virtually ensure your success at doing it. Okay? And you may be thinking, oh, well, the first one's definitely got to be take a class on how to garden. And the second one is, purchase, the newest and best composting toilet. And, no. These are 3 common sense things that you don't have to go out and spend any money on. None. It's free. You may have to earn it, but it's not going to cost you money. The first one of these 3 tips is seek out mentorship. Seek out a mentor. Find someone. Yeah, exactly, Heidi. Find someone who has done what you want to do and seek them out. Bug them if you have to. Send them a bunch of messages. Don't be a jerk, but let them know that what you're trying to communicate to them is an important thing, or that you want them to communicate these things to you, that you want the information that they have, that they earned through experience, not through indoctrination. Okay? Yeah, and don't find a mentor in New York. At least not in the city. But again, whatever you want to do. You want to be a blacksmith? Find a mentor. You want to be a welder? Find a mentor. I went both ways on that one. I found a mentor and took classes, and got my certification and all that kind of stuff. If I'm totally honest, I have to say that I learned what the 70 in 7018 welding rod means in my class. But I learned how to weld from a mentor. And I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos. One thing that you'll know about welders is they're cocky, and I'm damn good at it. So, so seek out a mentor. Find a person who has found success at doing what you want to do, and create a relationship with them. Maybe to get that, you're going to have to help them in their garden. Well, the thing about a mentor is most of the things that they want you to help with are the things that you want to learn anyway. So the things that you need to do, right? Alan, I agree with you. Gardening is very rewarding. It taught me patience, and it taught me how bad I could possibly be at something, because that's the thing that I was absolutely the worst at. I could kill a cactus in a rainforest. It was just, I'm Mr. Black Thumb. So, yep, it's always us. Yeah, that's the other thing, is when you have so many people piled on top of each other. And this was to the comment that said something like, it's always someone else's fault. Well, it's when someone's right there, it's really easy to point the finger at that person and say, it's your fault for this. I didn't read the rest of your comment. I'm sorry. I can't really see the screen right now. But when that person is way over there, you realize that it's you that creates the situations in your life. It's you that dictates it. So anyway, back to what I was talking about. So you've got that first step. Find a mentor and create a relationship with them. Seek it out. The second thing that is this, one of these tips is to ask questions. One of the things that I have trouble with is thinking that I already have a good solution for something. And I'm the guy that's going to reinvent the wheel 30 times before he has a cart to drag the stuff up the hill, you know, with proven technology, right? So I had to backstep a lot when I first came out because I didn't have a mentor at first, and I didn't ask questions because I already thought I knew. I already thought I had it figured out. And I think that's probably a common thing with a lot of people who want to live this way. They think that they have a better way of doing it. And the reason why I don't do many videos on, like, this is how you make a composting toilet, or this is how you, you know, install a wood stove, or whatever else, is because there's 800 gazillion videos like that already. And if you can't ask a mentor, ask Google. You know, ask YouTube. Ask Facebook groups. Ask questions. Get over the idea that you might be asking a dumb question. And to tell you the truth, if somebody responds to whatever question that you ask with, oh, that's a dumb question, block that person because they're a dick. Not only that, but they're also not somebody who you're going to learn anything from. So you've just weeded out one person. You know, you have to be able to ask a question and get an answer that's actually useful to you. Okay? Now you, at this point, may be thinking, man, these 3 steps seem very simple. Well, that's because truth is simple. You know, Einstein said it takes a real genius to make something simple. Any idiot could make it complicated. And I'm not calling myself either one of those people. I'm just saying that truth tends to be simple, okay? Truth tends to be things that if you just step back, you'd come across on your own. You know, you wouldn't need somebody to tell you that a thing is true, because you could just go, 2 plus 2 are 4. So, anyway. And the last step, which I think is the most important one, is to listen. Okay? You gotta be able to find a mentor. Ask a question. Those 2 things are definitely necessary. But if you do those and then you don't listen, I can almost guarantee that you're doomed to fail at it. You know, there's a lot of personal growth issues when you're doing this. There's a lot of ways that you're going to be tested and everything else. In my opinion, those things are going to happen one way or the other, whether you have somebody helping to guide you or not. But if you don't listen, you're going to have to go through every single one of them. And maybe you're not as stubborn as me. Maybe you're not as pig-headed as me. And maybe 4 years ago when it got really hard, maybe if you're in that situation, you wouldn't push through. You know, it's possible. I don't know. I know a lot of people that watch this are very independent and can actually do a lot of things on their own. But for you guys who have never really contemplated living this way, it's very difficult. And I may make it seem like it's all sunshine and roses, but it's not. You know, it's very, very difficult. Especially when you're not capable of listening to the advice of others. There's a reason why people like me communicate on this subject, and it's because I really truly feel like this is a solution to many of the world's problems. You know, if you're an environmentalist, make your own energy. You know, grow your own food, you know, on both sides. Actually, to tell you the truth, not only that, it's probably a solution to polarization, because the people on the far left and the people on the far right who want to live this way, they have almost identical reasons for it. So, I mean, it's an area where we could actually find a lot of agreement with a lot of people. I don't know. I'm trying not to get too preachy, because I think these 3 steps are applicable in all areas of your life. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back and, like I said, read all your comments and try to get back to them. We're going to do a question and answer in just a second. But the thing I want to say about listening is also listen accurately. Okay, listen to what the person is saying words-wise, but also what they are trying to say. And if you need clarification, go back to step 2. Ask another question. Make yourself a sponge for that information, but do it accurately. Take in the information that you can digest. It's kind of like food. You eat an apple. Okay, well, that apple goes into your body, and your body soaks out the things that you need from that apple, and you get rid of the rest, right? However you do that. I mean, I guess there's really only one way to do that, but you get what I'm saying, And for that reason, you need a good toilet. But take the information you can use and turn it into actions that you can do, There's no sense in seeking out a mentor that doesn't actually know from experience. And I think that's why education is in the state that it's in, is so many people are educating other people and have absolutely no experience in doing the thing that they're educating. So yeah. Anyhow, what I would like to do now is just kind of take any questions that you have. It doesn't have to be on this subject or anything else like that. I feel like I have, thanks, Ina. I feel like I have some experience in this, but I do also want you to realize that I'm just some guy, and that's who I think I am. I don't consider myself an expert or anything else like that, but I have had a lot of time to think, and I have had a lot of time to kind of get over some of the ideas that I used to have, and I think in that way, what I have to say on the subject is valid. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What kind of questions do you have? About our life out here. What is it that we did? Let's see. Off-grid life is a great way to live. Having lived it before, can tell you nothing like, but it's a lot of work. But it's well worth it. Absolutely, James. That's totally true. How did you get started in the off-grid thing? Let me just hit on Craig's question here. It's coffee. But Alan, how did we get started on the off-grid thing? The seed was actually planted back when we lived in Vegas. I was a former executive for a large water company out there, and after I decided that just wasn't, I didn't want to convince people of things for my living anymore, I decided that I was going to leave that job. I did so, and I started playing poker pretty much full time, 10 to 12 hours a day, and found a little bit of success in doing that. But then once we had lost everything, because that's the inevitable outcome from that story, we were in Las Vegas. It was 117 degrees outside. And our electricity got shut off. The next day, our water got shut off. So we're sitting there with a newborn, 6 months old or so at this time. Our water had been shut off. Our power had been shut off. And I was begging the companies to help us out. We were dying, like it was really, 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 really bad. So that's where the seed was planted, and what we did was I ended up moving back in with my mother-in-law, and with Carrie and the baby and her new husband, and that was just a huge. We went there and they had power and water, so but it destroyed me as a man, it really did. So I decided that I wasn't ever going to be in that situation again. I wasn't going to be in a situation where a utility company could hold my self-worth in their hands. That was just never going to happen again. About a year and a half later, we had found a little more success, and we're doing pretty well. We were in a little condo and everything else, and we were like, okay, let's find a house. Let's buy a house. We're looking at houses, and they're like, oh my God, it's $500,000, $750,000 for this, 2-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow. It was just an unbelievable thing. Let's see. How old was I at the time? That was, I don't know, about 10 years ago, so 26. Anyway, we were looking for houses, and we came across this ad for an empty lot. And it was, an empty lot that was $26,000. And my wife was like, huh, we've always talked about wanting to build our own house and everything else. And this day was, let's see, it was April 2nd that we found this ad. April 2nd, 7 years ago now. And we started talking more, and we started actually searching for that specifically. We found just thousands of properties that were affordable, 20 grand, 10 grand, all of that kind of stuff. We found one that was perfect for us on the internet. We looked at Google Earth images. We knew nothing about the properties at all, other than the information that we found on the internet, and we just took a chance. So that was April 2nd. We arrived on the property May 5th. So it was a little over a month. Because the seed had already been planted. We were sick of it. We were sick of having people all over the place. We were sick of all of the, the day before we left, my next door neighbor went out to his garage, started his car, and then went back in his house, came out, and somebody had stolen his car out of the garage. A guy pulls up in front of my house where my kids are playing and starts taking a hit off a meth pipe. I was stuck in traffic for almost 4 hours, and in between two exits. I couldn't get off the damn freeway. All of these things just came to a head all at once, and that was it. So that's what we did. Okay, somebody asked a question, I think, about making money off-grid or something like that. I don't know if... So if there was another question about that, post it. I'll try, and they come in kind of fast. Everybody posts at the same time, so it just jumps on past it. But yeah, that's let's see. It isn't the best place for kids. In fact, it's the worst place for kids. Let me tell you something that I observe about my kids. My kids are like, you should see them climb a rope. Go to a school in the city and put the kids in a position where they have to climb a rope. And I will show you my 3-year-old will just two-handed, no legs, right on up. This is their natural habitat. The city, it's kind of like a mean joke to let kids feel like they have to be there, like that's what life is. That's not life. That's something that's been sold to you just to make you more pliable, more easy to control. And this would be a very unpopular philosophy to follow if you were talking to somebody who is a federal employee or an elected official, because they know if we spread out, we'd be very difficult to control. But all of these fabricated problems would kind of melt away. So we do homeschool. Yeah, we started last year, actually. My oldest made it through the first half of 2nd grade. My wife is a teacher as well. My wife, she's a music teacher. She has recently left the bigger school that she was working at. She built a whole music program out of nothing, but it had just become too difficult to be in that environment. But yeah, the kids, we do homeschool. And that is frickin' hard too. I got twins on the way. It's going to be very difficult to take care of the twins the first year and still homeschool, but we're gonna we're going to push through and get it out. And if you follow me or my profile or any of our pages or anything else like that, you'll know that I tend to just find myself in the situation that is the hardest. Are you 100% self-sufficient? Not yet. Nope. We're still working on, we are now energy independent, aside from the propane that we use for our refrigeration and cooking. We've got a biodigester in the works to make those things dependent, but I have to say, you know, propane is so cheap, I'd rather focus on some other things to, you know, like focusing on food dependent or independence and you know, a lot of other things actually. We're actually thinking right now about buying some bigger property, more property, and then doing this all over again, having made all the mistakes and seeing how much easier it is. I also drive an electric car, you know, which I do have to put gas in, but most of the driving I do is on the electric side of things. Any other questions, comments, concerns, disagreements? I love those. Anybody want to brave the waters of telling me how, yeah, biodiesel is awesome, of how wrong I am? Let's see, is it considered self-sufficient if you have a car? I don't know. What do you consider self-sufficient or self-sufficient? That's the thing is again, if you follow my profile and that, I have a very loose definition of off-grid, and what I want to do is give you the opportunity to define it for yourself. You know, what is off-grid to you? And you know, if you have a car, great. It'll help you get from A to B a lot faster. Let's see, what do you think of shots required by doctors and schools? Do you let your kids get them? I, for one, don't think a lot are necessary. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think there are some that are necessary. And if you come out to a rural place from a city place, you're going to have absolutely no tolerance to certain sicknesses. And I think that those are things... I don't want to get into the debate about vaccines because I know, you know, people feel very polarized on that subject too. But I would like to recommend a show. I don't know if you've ever seen, everybody says, you know, watch Vaxxed and you'll never vaccinate again. Well, watch, if you remember the Magicians, Penn and Teller, they have a show, I'm just going to say BS because there might be kids, but it's called the full name there, and you can, I think it's on Netflix. Or Hulu. Watch that. Watch the episode of Penn and Teller's BS on vaccines, and it might change a little bit about it. Let's see. If you can survive a zombie apocalypse, you're good. Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, I mean, that's got to be your metric for what survival actually means. Was curious about it, and thanks for your honesty about it. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just have to say on the subject, you know, when all we had was home remedies to sicknesses, the life expectancy was X. And now life expectancy is X plus 20, you know. Although the pharmaceutical industry is just ridiculous, and it's like run by Lex Luthor from a tower in New York. There are some advances in modern medicine that have you know, increased lifespans. So you got to be able to take the good. It's again, what are you digesting of the questions that you ask, and what are you just pooping out? So. Yeah. Well, if there's no more questions or comments or reactions, why don't you guys give me you know, a bunch of the little reaction buttons, not really as a round of applause, but let me know what you thought about today's talk, what it is that you know, if it made you angry, hit the angry button. If you loved it, hit the heart. If you're like, hey, I agree, you know, do the like button or whatever other reactions there happen to be on there now. and kind of just let me know what you thought, and that'll kind of help me to hone my shows in the future. Yeah, if I made you laugh, make sure to hit the laugh button. That's my goal in life. I don't know if I ever told anybody this from this group, but I went to a high school that had 10,000 kids in it. And my graduating class took 3 days of graduation broken into 5-hour blocks. I was voted most likely to make you laugh in high school, not only my senior year, but my junior year as well. And it's always been my purpose. I think that you can change more things with a laugh than you can change with a bullet. And so that's all I kind of want to do, you know? Modern day pioneer. Well, you know, like I said at the beginning, I'm just some guy, and some guy who's had time to think a little bit. But the thing that I'm better at than any person I've ever met is making mistakes. So, you know, yeah. Hey, thanks, James. James is awesome. Actually, if you get a chance, check out James's bicycle camper. He did a video on it the other day that was just awesome. I'm so glad to see people starting to share things. I think in this life, people are so afraid to share things because it's almost ensured that if you share your life living this way, that you're going to get in trouble, or at least you've been sold that. I decided to test the water, and so far, it hasn't changed anything for me. Other than I've actually come up with better solutions because I've had a dialogue going with people. I think that's why, again, media works either off of fear or guilt. And which one you react to can tell me what side you're on. Somebody just hit the angry button. I love that. I love it when people get either angry at me or angry about what I'm saying, because I think it's to get any kind of reaction, you know, from someone that is emotional in any way. At least will open the door to them thinking about the subject, or they'll know that there's somebody else that agrees with them, one or the other. Nice. Yeah, learn from my mistakes. I'm pretty open about all of the different mistakes that I've made. You really don't have to make mistakes. You know, the book I want to write is all about the mistakes I've made, and I don't want to give you solutions to those things because I think that your solutions could be better than mine. But I do want you to know that these things are, you know, situations that you're going to encounter and how you can address it. Hey, thanks, Gerald. I don't know. Well, I'll try and keep it the way it is and not get too, one way or the other. Yeah, no, I don't think it's a good way to motivate, but you know what? If I can make you laugh, I bet I can also make you think. So that's what I'm going. Do you like self-sufficient communities and learning from them? Absolutely. This group actually is the biggest self-sustaining group on Facebook that I know of. I've done a bunch of searches and none even come close because you know, there's so many. There's 137,000 people that are members of this group. And so many of them have so much good information to help you and are willing to communicate about it. So let's see. Did you have a hard time getting started? My husband and I want to be off-grid, but are having a crazy time to find good, cheap property. See, I think that's your issue right there, actually, is what your definition of a good property is. My definition of a good property is one that's far away from huge population centers, and where I'm at, I happen to know of, you know, property for or actually within an hour and a half of me or 2 hours, there's you know, lots of property that's 5, 10, 15, 20 acres for 6, 10 grand, you know. You have to realize that what you actually want is a piece of dirt that you can start from scratch from. and that you can put exactly the systems that you want to put in there to make it into a good property. That's the biggest thing I can say. Like I was talking about in the beginning of the video, is it was like 31, 32 days between when we decided we wanted to do this and when we arrived on our property. We didn't own it before that. So, I don't know. When people ask me what was the hardest part about starting, I usually respond with starting. Deciding that you're going to go in a direction is more important than how you're going to go in that direction. You need to just get off of the maybe, say these are the basic criteria I want. I want trees, I want rocks, I want this kind of earth. And find something that fits those basic criteria, and then everything else, realize you need to just write it down on a piece of paper, all the things that you want that aren't those three things, and then take that piece of paper over to your fire pit, light it on fire, and put it in there. Because all of those things you can just do when you get there. You can plant stuff, everything else. So things can happen quickly. They can happen even quickly, more quickly than that. You just go, start. There's this guy that made a video. He was the guy who founded Primerica, whatever, some multi-level marketing deal. I believe his name is Jim Wilson. He has a video where he goes, I have people come up to me all the time and they tell me that, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to recruit this and this and this and this. Did I say quicklier? That's pretty funny. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt now. Quicklier. Make it happen quicklier. So Jim Wilson says, he goes, now I'm going to, make this much money in the first year. And he says, my response is, just do it. Just get out there and do it. Just go. Start. If you need somebody to tell you start, listen to me and look me in the eyes. Ready? Start. You can do it. You have opposable thumbs and the ability to solve most problems. Just go. Oh, James, anytime, man. You're awesome, and you have some really innovative ideas. I'd like people to check them out. So yeah. Anyhow, I think I've rambled on long enough. I know there was a gazillion comments for me to go through. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours for the video to make it so that I can comment on them. So it'll be a little bit, but I'm going to get back to doing the thousands of things that need to happen on a daily basis, and I'm going to enjoy my life. Just remember that, like I was just saying, that the most difficult thing to do when beginning this project is just to start. All you got to do is start. Okay? Once you get there, if you watch the rest of my videos, you'll know exactly what to expect. And hopefully you will have a little bit of a roadmap on how to get to where you want to be from where you are. Because that's the part that matters. A very close mentor of mine who was almost 90 years old at the time told me one time that the destination doesn't matter. It's the journey that you get all your growth from. And this is a journey, getting from point A to point B. It's one that you'll grow from in a way that you have no idea. Colloidal silver update. Everybody's asking me about that, but guess what? I got a video that's going to be coming out here pretty soon, and I made a small, duplicatable colloidal silver generator that I am going to have, available for people to pick up that won't break the bank. If you look online, they're like $250 for the cheapest one, and it sucks. This one's going to be less than half that. So there you go, colloidal silver update. I'm hoping that happens by the middle of this next week. So anyhow, it's a beautiful day. If you got chores to do, I hope that you do them swiftly. Stay cool. I, for one, after I do my chores, am getting picked up by my wife in about 3 hours, and we are going back to the lake. And I'm probably going to spend the rest of the weekend there because I want to and have the freedom to. So, and it's hot as heck out here. Yeah. So that was a lot of ahs. I'm trying to do away with the communication additives, but that was quite a few of them in a row. So I will talk to you guys next week. I love all of you. Thank you so much for the support. And for all of the questions, I'm going to get back to those before I leave for the lake because I won't have any reception up there. And whatever it is that you want to do, will you just start? Will you just do it? And take what I said today with whatever amount of salt that you'd like, a grain or a cup. Because again, I'm just some guy, and the only thing I'm interested in doing is making you laugh, making you think, and helping you to be successful at what you want to do. Okay? Love you guys, and I'll see you next week. Oh, thanks for the reactions. I love seeing it. It's like fireworks. Woo! Doo, doo, doo. Thanks, guys.